Greenhouse technology. Introduction, types of greenhouses, plant response to greenhouse. Environment. Greenhouse is the most practical method of achieving the objectives of protected agriculture, where the natural environment is modified by using sound engineering principles to achieve optimum plant growth and yields. Greenhouse. A greenhouse is a frame or an inflated structure covered with a transparent or translucent material, in which crops would be grown under the conditions of at least partially controlled environment and which is large enough to permit persons to work within it to carry out cultural operations. The growing of off-season cucumbers under transparent stone for Emperor Tiberius in the 1st century is the earliest reported protected agriculture. The technology was rarely employed during the next 1,500 years. In the 16th century, glass lanterns, bell jars and hotbeds covered with glass were used to protect horticultural crops against cold. In the 17th century, low portable wooden frames covered with an oil translucent paper were used to warm the plant environment. In Japan, primitive methods using oil paper and straw mats to protect crops from the severe natural environment were used as long ago the early 1960s. Greenhouses in France and England during the same century were heated by manure and covered with glass panes. The first greenhouse in the 1700s used glass on one side only as a sloping roof. Later in the century, glass was used on both sides. Glass houses were used for fruit crops such as melons, grapes, peaches and strawberries, and rarely for vegetable production. Protected agriculture was fully established with the introduction of polyethylene after the World War II. The first use of polyethylene as a greenhouse cover was in 1948, when Professor Emery Miles Emmett, at the University of Kentucky, used the less expensive material in place of more expensive glass. The total area of glass houses in the world 1987 was estimated to be 30,000 hectares, and most of these were found in northwestern Europe. In contrast to glass houses, more than half of the world area of plastic greenhouses is in Asia, in which China has the largest area. According to 1999 estimates, an area of 682,050 hectares were under plastic greenhouses. In most of the countries, greenhouses are made of plastic and glass. The majority is plastic. Glass houses and rigid plastic houses are longer life structures, and therefore are most located in cold regions where these structures can be used throughout the year. In Japan, year-round use of greenhouses is becoming predominant, but in moderate and warm climate regions, they are still provisional and are only used in winter. In India, the cultivation in the plastic greenhouses is of recent origin. As per 1994-95 estimates, approximately 100 hectares of India are under greenhouse cultivation. Since 1960, the greenhouse has evolved into more than a plant protector. It is now better understood as a system of controlled environment agriculture, with precise control of air and root temperature, water, humidity, plant nutrition, carbon dioxide and light. The greenhouses of today can be considered as plant or vegetable factories. Almost every aspect of the production system is automated, with the artificial environment and growing system under nearly total computer control. Greenhouse effect. In general, the percentage of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is 0.035%, 345 parts per million. But, due to the emission of pollutants and exhaust gases into the atmosphere, the percentage of carbon dioxide increases, which forms a blanket in the outer atmosphere. This causes the untrapping of the reflected solar radiation from the Earth's surface. Due to this, the atmospheric temperature increases, causing global warming, melting of ice caps and rise in the ocean levels, which result in the submergence of coastal lines. This phenomenon of increase in the ambient temperature, due to the formation of the blanket of carbon dioxide, is known as greenhouse effect. The greenhouse covering material acts in a similar way, as it is transparent to shorter wave radiation and opaque to long wave radiation. During the daytime, the shorter wave radiation enters into the greenhouse and gets reflected from the ground surface. This reflected radiation becomes long wave radiation and is entrapped inside the greenhouse by the covering material. This causes the increase in the greenhouse temperature. It is desirable effect from point of view of crop growth in the cold regions. Advantages of greenhouses. The following are the different advantages of using the greenhouse for growing crops under controlled environment. Throughout the year 4 to 5 crops can be grown in a greenhouse due to availability of required plant environmental conditions. The productivity of the crop is increased considerably. Superior quality produce can be obtained as they are grown under suitably controlled environment. Gadgets for efficient use of various inputs like water, fertilizers, seeds and plant protection chemicals can be well maintained in a greenhouse. Effective control of pests and diseases is possible as the growing area is enclosed. Types of greenhouse. Greenhouse structures of various types are used successfully for crop production. Although there are advantages in each type for a particular application, in general there is no single type greenhouse, which can be considered as the best. Different types of greenhouses are designed to meet the specific needs. Greenhouse type based on shape. Greenhouses can be classified based on their shape or style. For the purpose of classification, the uniqueness of the cross-section of the greenhouses can be considered as a factor. As the longitudinal section tend to be approximately the same for all types, the longitudinal section of the greenhouse cannot be used for classification. The cross-sections depict the width and height of the structure and the length is perpendicular to the plane of cross-section. Also, the cross-section provides information on the overall shape of the structural members, such as truss or hoop, which will be repeated on every day. The commonly followed types of greenhouse based on shape are lean-to, even span, uneven span, ridge and furrow, sawtooth and Quonset.